Hi, I'm Phoebe Salvador. I'm an artist manager based in Toronto, New York, and LA.
When you're on an airplane and you're flying somewhere, so what do you do? What do you say? And how do you explain that to people who may not actually be in the music industry?
First and foremost, I'm a manager, and I guide people's careers in the arts, and then primarily music. And then secondly, I've started branching into things. I've been in this long enough to realize that you need equity in this game to last or to have something to retire on. I've run a publishing company. Now we're starting a new publishing company. And I'm also starting a little record label, but I haven't, it's all in the works currently. But primarily it's my management clients that I've had management clients for the last 17 years, I think is how long I've been working on music.
Phoebe, what was it like growing up in Toronto?
Growing up in Toronto was really helpful, especially in that time. There was such diversity. I actually forgot that I was someone of color. Does that make any sense?
As someone who was here in the 90s as well, in Toronto, there was no better place on earth to be because you did forget. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. It wasn't until I went to college in the US, and then most of my career has been mostly living and working in the US, but for Canadian companies and also on my own. But it wasn't until I was in the US that I realized I was, really the truth is it hasn't been maybe the last 10 years where I realized I was like, oh, I'm someone of color and I'm a woman. And I started my career in music when I was 23, so I was really young. I just kind of went with it. It took a colleague of mine who said, oh my God, I can't believe you went to Nashville and you did such a great job. You were out there for 6 weeks. And I said, what do you mean? I was just doing my job. And they're like, you're Asian and you're and I was like, oh, that part, I just never thought about it until recently. Looking back on it, I've been in some meetings where I was like, oh, maybe that's why I didn't get further in a conversation. Not only being of color, but also being a woman. But I didn't know that, I would just.
And so is that something that you've looked at retrospectively in detail and in depth over the last couple of years or in the last several months, because there is much more of a climate to do that? And if you have, what's that found you? What has that brought to you, if anything? Courage,
really. It's brought me courage to do anything I want at this point, especially at a time where there's a lot of mandates to be more inclusive to both women and to people of color. I think ultimately, I'm in this business to help tell stories, whether it's me or help my clients tell stories through music. And I think it's more important than ever to have diverse voices. My problem with the Canadian music business, there's a lot of talent, but the business is the same people have the same positions for a very long time. And there is no checks and balances, to perform excellently. And I know that there's a lot of people that now operate independently and not within the system.
So Phoebe, in your opinion, what would you say are the greatest challenges facing artists today?
I think there's social media presence. I think, if you're an artist and you don't like to be online, or you're not a sensationalist kind of personality, it's really difficult for you to maintain a social media presence. So some of those artists, the artists that are not very good at marketing, they have the hardest time.
Is there a future for artists who cannot also be a brand and be social and be widely amplified on social media? Does music still count just for music, or are we past that now?
I think if we're talking about the Hot 100, then no. But there's also the flip side of the music business that's really interesting that SoundCloud has created, avenues like SoundCloud and being able to also just upload on TuneCore or something, right up to like any of the DSPs. You can have a career. If you're just, if you're a musician, you can have a career, you could tour, you can have plays, you can do those things, but it's just being realistic with yourself about what kind of artist you want to be and like where you want to be, where you like how big you want to be and where you see your trajectory.
Would you manage someone who you knew was so incredible at getting themselves out there and getting the views, the eyeballs, and really becoming an influencer, but their artistic merit as a musical thing was maybe not up to the level that you're used to? And then equally, someone who is so musically gifted but has no ability to get that attention or desire. Are either of those artists you could work with?
I would love to manage all the great artists that I've come across that are really talented, but then I couldn't make a living doing that. Some of these very talented musicians, their artist project might not do a lot, but then they produce and they songwrite. And then on the flip side, what you're asking, if like somebody on TikTok is, a really gifted marketing person, not the best, like music, doesn't produce the best music, I can't really work with people who are not very good. I don't like musically.
That's fair.
Because you want to wake up every day and be excited to work on that project. And what music will we remember, right? Like, what music will history remember?